Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Namaste. Very sincerely, namaste. As you know, we're studying Swami Prabhavananda's interpretation of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. The title of his book is How to Know God. We're on Chapter 1, Sutra 17, and we are going over the definitions according to the Sankhya philosophy of the 24 cosmic principles. If we remember, the equivalent for Brahman in Sankhya is Purusha. The equivalent for Maya is Prakriti. Now, these are not precise equivalents, but as Swami Prabhavananda said, for our purposes, the difference is a distinction without a difference. So we'll just go ahead with these, understanding that we're talking about the same things that in Vedanta are called Brahman and Maya when we speak of Purusha and Prakriti. The first stage of evolution from undifferentiated Prakriti is called Mahat, the great cause. Mahat is the cosmic ego sense. Cosmic ego sense. In other words, that which did not have any change or attribute as this evolution begins, this ego sense dawns. So it's the cosmic ego sense, the first dawning of differentiated consciousness. It may perhaps be compared to the spirit moving on the face of the waters, which is mentioned in the book of Genesis. That's the very first thing that is said in the book of Genesis, is that all was darkness, and then the spirit moved on the face of the waters. When the spirit moves across the waters, or a breeze goes across the waters, of course it produces waves. From Mahat is evolved Buddhi, the discriminating faculty, which has already been described. The discriminating faculty is the ability to tell one thing from another. From Buddhi is evolved Ahamkar, the individual ego sense. I can tell one thing from another. But there is only one Ahamkar. There is only one I. We are that I, but our sense of ourselves as a human being as something being human is a reflection of that ahamkar, that one ego sense. From ahamkar, the lines of evolution branch off in three different directions to produce to produce manas, the recording faculty. Notice that the mind, manas, is called the recording faculty. The five powers of perception, sight, smell, hearing, taste, and touch. So now we're defining these 11 of the 24 cosmic principles. One of the 11 is manas, the recording faculty. The five powers of perception, sight, smell, hearing, taste, and touch. The five organs of action, tongue, feet, hands, and the organs of evacuation and procreation. And the 5 tanmatras, which are the subtle inner essences of sound, feel, aspect, flavor, and odor. Those things which produce the senses. These subtle tanmatras, combining and recombining, are then said to produce the 5 gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, of which the external universe is composed. So before we go on, are there any comments from your own wisdom or experience, or any concern or question that this raises that you would like to express? Anything at all about these, the definitions, starting with Purusha, Prakriti, Mahat, Buddhi, Ahamkar, and so on? Anything at all?
So I'm not acquainted with the book of Genesis. So what is it and why is that being brought as an example here?
Well, it's just, the Swami knows he's speaking to people who were raised in the Judeo-Christian tradition. When he wrote this book, there were virtually no Indians in the United States at all. So I think he wrote this book in 1948. He was speaking to people when he spoke in the temple and when he wrote for them. He was speaking and writing for people who were raised by and large in the Judeo-Christian tradition. And so he was trying to give an analogy from their own scriptures of what is meant by Mahat. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Shankar,
yes, please, Balakrishna.
I just wonder, when he said this cosmic ego sense, the first dawning of differentiated consciousness. Can we think about this, the Vedanta's reflected consciousness?
Think of it as Brahman gives rise out of its own energy, just as Purusha gives rise out of its own energy. It gives rise to Prakriti. Then in Vedanta, it is Brahman gives rise to Maya. In Vedanta, the definition goes on to say that from Maya arises Hiranyagarbha, the cosmic egg. This is the same process described in a different way. Sankhya is more particular in its description, step by step. So when we think of this cosmic ego sense, we're thinking of that which said, I am one, I shall become many, in Chandogya Upanishad. That's the Vedanta lineage, so to speak, the line of reasoning. Does that get it, Balakrishna? Or is there something more?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Anything else about these cosmic principles that we have been defining? Before we go on, it's good that we have a very clear grasp of what it is that the Swami is saying, because Patanjali builds on this understanding. His whole structure of disassembling what was assembled from Mahat downwards, Patanjali tracks backwards to where we're left with only the cosmic ego sense, that uncaused cause, that independent or kaivalya entity. That's where the eighth limb of Patanjali's yoga ends. And the rest of Patanjali's yoga is how to work our way backwards through this thicket of cosmic principles to that one undifferentiated consciousness.
So I was trying to count the number of tanmatras there are. I'm counting 21, and you said it's 25 or 24.
24, 24. We start with Mahat,
Okay.
Buddhi, and Ahamkara. If you start with those, you should get 24.
Okay.
There's 5
Okay.
sets. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
So I have to count Manas, Buddhi, and Ahamkar.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, got it.
Mahat.
Then
You count the number. The first one is Mahat. The first cosmic principle is Mahat. Then Buddhi, then Ahamkar. Those 3. And then they
you
branch
have 4
out.
sets of 5.
Right.
Yeah, 4 sets of 5. So, okay, got it. 24.
Right.
A little bit of a broader question is, I know in this book, occasionally we have talked about cosmology, and you in your examples have also brought that word. How do you put boundaries? What does it exactly mean, and how do I put boundaries around that word, cosmology?
It's an interesting question, Bhaskar. There actually are no boundaries. The boundaries exist so far in our knowledge of cosmology. But cosmology and that which it is attempting to describe, the ocean of consciousness or the infinite universe itself, is without limit. As St. Thomas Aquinas said, he was quite a poetical fellow. He said, draw a circle around all you know of universe. Draw a circle around all you know of universe, and God can barely fit a toe there. God being the infinite, the limitless being. So cosmology has no limit except as it is understood by seers and sages and by scientists, primarily cosmologists and astrophysicists. And they keep discovering how little they know, those people who are on the science side. They have recently discovered that they have been studying only 5% of what apparently exists. What a shock. And just, it might have been Friday, sometime very recently, I read that they have just made some discoveries by analyzing data collected about the sun that they don't really understand. They thought they understood how the sun works, how our star, Sol, works. Turns out this new data, which is apparently unquestionable, incontrovertible, that they do not understand how the sun works, which is pretty elementary.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Bhaskar.
I'll come back to heliosphere because I think that's something that was also in the news. But I want to come back to your one of your last statement that you ended with, saying that from here onwards, Patanjali will build on what we learned. And what we just learned, I'm just trying to clarify, is the Purusha, the Prakriti, and the 24 Tanmatras. Is that
24 cosmic principles. 24 cosmic principles that include the Tanmatras.
Include that. Okay. Thank you.
Now, what he's going to do, essentially, is teach us how to deconstruct what we put together as the divine being. We put together this universe of appearance, this universe of being, creating, doing, and sharing. We did this because we like being, creating, doing, and sharing. But at some point, and we'll discuss this in some detail tomorrow, at some point, we get weary of this and we wish to stop it, stop our participation in it. Patanjali's method is one of the 4 yogas taught by Swami Vivekananda on how to deconstruct this realm of appearance and what Sri Ramakrishna says is illusory. That doesn't mean it's not real in a relative sense. It is real in the sense that water blowing across the surface of a still body of water, wind blowing across the surface of a still body of water creates waves on that water. They're no different than the water, but they seem to be different. So Patanjali is now going to teach us how to deconstruct what was constructed from Mahat coming down to all of the 24 cosmic principles. That's what his whole book, his whole system of sutras is about. How to deconstruct it and return to that undifferentiated, causeless cause. Thank you, Bhaskar. Anything else from anyone about these 24 cosmic principles and our grasp of them, so that we, as we move ahead, we're clear on what the Swami talks about when he refers to them. Good. Yep, go ahead.
So I know in your last statement you made a comment about Vivekananda probably popularizing the four yogas, meaning Raj, Gyan, Bhakti, and Karma. When we go to the Gita probably only talks about two indirectly. Indirectly, it probably talks about all the four. How would you reconcile, or how would you kind of bring the two together?
Oh, Bhaskar, that's way too big a question to answer here. The Gita.
Sorry.
No, it's quite all right. It's a very pregnant question. Patanjali is a very particular way of going about this. Sri Krishna refers to it in the Gita when he refers to meditation, the practice of meditation. And he says that the practice of meditation is the only way to unravel this mare's nest of appearance. His reasoning and what he says about it in some ways parallels Patanjali, and in some ways is slightly different than Patanjali. Both are based in Sankhya, but Sri Krishna was much earlier, and Sri Krishna was essentially summarizing for Arjuna all of the wisdom that is represented in the Upanishads that were known in that day. Sri Krishna, of course, would have known them all intuitively, but all four yogas are indeed described by Sri Krishna in the Gita. Chapter 12 is very explicit about the yoga of devotion. As I said, Raja Yoga, or the system of meditation, Krishna gives instructions in the Gita for how to sit and so on. He gives asana instructions. But Raja Yoga, as formulated and carefully and scientifically, as Swami Vivekananda says, Patanjali was a scientist. And so he very scientifically lays out each phase of the deconstruction that he's talking about. Good questions, Bhaskar. Good questions. Good things to get flat. Anything else from anyone? I mean, Bhaskar, yeah, please.
I feel, Brother Shankara, that all these spiritual books that are so enlightening and quite complicated and need a lot of interpretation for dull minds like us to comprehend. I would take the analogy of a mother bird bringing all the food, the worms, the insects, masticating it in her mouth and then feeding the kids, so that it is softer, easier to digest, easier to chomp on, to chew on, and to take a bite. So I would say that's what thanks to Vivekananda Swamiji, that common people can grasp these intense concepts.
Well, I'll agree with everything you said except dull minds, dear. I don't see any dull minds here. There's anything but dullness. We're all immersed in ignorance, but I don't see any dullness here.
I meant ignorant minds.
That's how they say it in Cajun country. Oh, that fellow's just ignorant. Ignorant. All right, dears. Okay, well then we'll go ahead. So the last thing that the Swami says, and this is of course what we're very familiar with, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, of which the external universe, the universe that we know and love, is composed. To some all this up briefly. Creation is here described as an evolution outward from undifferentiated into differentiated consciousness, from mind into matter. Pure consciousness is, as it were, gradually covered by successive layers of ignorance and differentiation, each layer being grosser and thicker than the one below it, until the process ends on the outer physical surface of the visible and tangible world. It is necessary to keep this idea of evolution clearly in mind if we are to understand Patanjali's technique of meditation. For meditation is evolution in reverse. As I said, how do we deconstruct this? Meditation is evolution in reverse. Meditation is a process of devolution. Beginning at the surface of life, the meditative mind goes inward, seeking always the cause behind the appearance. I'm going to read that again. Beginning at the surface of life, the meditative mind goes inward, seeking always the cause behind the appearance. And in our mind, this is our waking awareness. What is just below our waking awareness? Our active subconscious. What is below our active subconscious? Our latent subconscious. In each of those are causes that produce effects. In the latent subconscious, effects are caused in the active subconscious. In the active subconscious, the causes produce effects in the waking awareness. Beneath these three, waking, active subconscious, latent subconscious, is unconsciousness or undifferentiated consciousness. Causeless consciousness. We visit this place in dreamless sleep. It is not that there's no consciousness there. Oh, there's consciousness. It even shows up as brain waves. Very slow, very regular brain waves. And we wake from sleep rested, we're told, because of our being in that dreamless sleep state. And you wake and you say, oh, I had a good sleep. Because dreams are a form of restlessness. They are the active subconscious responding to the gunas. Anyway, without going off in that direction prematurely. Seeking the cause behind the appearance, and then the cause behind the cause, until the innermost reality is reached. That innermost reality is undifferentiated, pure consciousness. Kaivalya, independent of any cause or any limitation.
Brother Shankara, that is the Sushupti state or the Turiya state, the undifferentiated?
What was the first word you used, dear?
Sushupti or Turiya?
Turiya. Let's just say Turiya.
Okay.
It is the fourth. You'll notice I mentioned three before I got to the undifferentiated consciousness.
Oh, that's right.
For those of us who don't know the word define Sushupta or Sushupti.
Jagran, Swapna, Sushupti, and Turiya. So Jagrat is waking, Swapna is dreaming state. Then Sushupti is deep sleep.
Yeah.
I thought deep sleep has no consciousness, but I mean, deep sleep and Turiya kind of seem same. And Turiya is the fourth, obviously. I know Turiya is in all these three states.
Deep sleep is a reflection. It is the Anandamaya Kosha.
I see.
Behind mind, behind buddhi, behind the external appearance is that which is reflected in the Anandamaya Kosha, which appears to us as dreamless sleep and is ever existing within us. That's why we can reach it through meditation. And that reaching it through meditation is Savikalpa Samadhi. Anything else? Thank you, Krishna Kali. Turiya. Undifferentiated consciousness is Turiya. Okay. Now let us consider.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
Yes, thank you for, in my mind, I had the same question, how you related the 5 koshas with the 4 states of mind is very important to clarify. And
well, we don't need, they're not part of Patanjali, so let's just set that aside for the moment. Because of what Krishna Kali said, I brought up the Anandamaya Kosha, but we don't need to be bothered right now about the other 4 koshas. I mean, we could spend the rest of the class just talking about those, and I'm not sure it would get us very far with Patanjali. It comes from a different frame of reference.
okay, thank you.
So Patanjali is Sankhya or not?
Yes, but he's Sankhya plus. Sankhya Sankhya does not have any idea of the personal God. Patanjali includes the idea of Ishwar, or personal God, and says it's good for us to appeal to the personal God for assistance, for strength, for concentration. He's very clear about that.
Thank you for clarifying that. So no God, and then God plus, God and not God. So the 3 states.
Well, Sri Krishna incorporates the personal God as well as himself. So it isn't that, but the pure Sankhya does not have any concept of the personal God.
And pure Sankhya, just to clarify, is just Purusha and Prakriti, right?
Oh dear, let's not try to get off on. First of all, I don't understand Sankhya well enough to explain it in plain English. I understand the 24 cosmic principles as we've been discussing them, but Sankhya is just as complex as modern physics and chemistry. It is a complete description of physical reality, of the world of appearance. We've just been summarizing the 24 cosmic principles and the evolution from undifferentiated consciousness to the world of our awareness, what it is that we're aware of. And now, as the Swami said, we're going to study Patanjali's method of taking us back up that chain to undifferentiated consciousness. But it's interesting that Patanjali very earnestly encourages us to take the hand of the personal God. Anything else from anyone?
I think I came to the party late. I wish I'd started these studies long ago. I lost out so much lifetime, life prawns.
No, you didn't, dear. You became a master musician. You can't do everything all at once. Now it's time to do this. Treasure who you are, dear. You didn't miss anything. You're doing this at exactly the right time. You became a master musician. I know I've heard you play and sing. So there's no question about what you became and the pure joy of the being and creating that you did. And now you teach it along with some other things. But it's that you didn't come to the party late. You came to the party just at the right time.
Thank you. That's a consolation.
Well, it shouldn't be a consolation, dear. It should just be a clarification. You didn't do anything wrong. You did some wonderful things right. Treasure who you are. Each of us, treasure who you are. You're here this afternoon because something has happened that causes you to want to spend your time this way. We'll talk about this in some detail tomorrow. Ye have not chosen me.
Shankara, I still remember her singing Krishna song. Maybe we should give her one time for about 5 minutes to sing it again.
Any time, but I don't think she's ready right this minute. So
Okay,
we'll definitely
yes,
give her the opportunity at another time.
yes.
Yes, there's Krishna Kali knows many, many songs.
Yeah.
And
Thank
is a
you,
wonderful
Balaji.
and is a wonderful instrumentalist as well.
Yes.
Okay. Now let us consider, and this is now we've begun to study Patanjali. Now the definitions are complete of what the background is. Now let us consider Patanjali's 4 stages of concentration upon a single object. This is the beginning of Patanjali's training us in how to concentrate. And once we know how to concentrate, then we can begin to meditate. So this is the first kind of concentration, is concentration on a single object. This kind of concentration is contrasted with the other higher kind of concentration, which is described in the next aphorism, the concentration which goes deeper than all objects and unites itself with pure undifferentiated consciousness. But first we need to master the art of concentration. Before we can do objectless concentration, we need to do mantra meditation or mantra concentration, breath, following the breath, mindfulness. All of these are object-related systems of concentration. So I'll read that again. Now let us consider Patanjali's 4 stages of concentration upon a single object. This kind of concentration is contrasted with the other, higher kind of concentration, which is described in the next aphorism, the concentration which goes deeper than all objects and unites itself with pure, undifferentiated consciousness. Concentration upon a single object is, however, a necessary preliminary stage. When it is practiced intensely, it can take the mind very far, right out to the ultimate borders of undifferentiated matter. Now, before we go on, is there anything that anyone would like to say about this that we're about to embark on? From your own experience, your own wisdom?
It is so amazing that the world used to laugh at the Hindus for all these idol images. Now we see why they were idols.
Yes, and Sri Ramakrishna says, don't you think for a minute they're dead. Don't you think for a minute they're inert. They are made of pure consciousness.
Yes, and that reminds me, an old friend of mine phoned me this week, and I told him I'd gotten into Vedanta, and he said that was Hinduism, and Hindus were idol worshippers. And he likened that to the Jews who worship the golden calf, and how God was not happy with that. It really bothered me.
Don't let it bother you, Brahmadas. Just because he has a limited view of what it is that you're up to, don't let it bother you. Don't let it trouble you in the least. He just doesn't understand.
Right, and I tried to explain that that's not what it is, but he wouldn't listen.
No, of course not. He has his idée fixée, his fixed ideas about what's what. And so the minute you said what you were involved with, that tripped his wire, that put a quarter in his slot, and away he went.
Started the jukebox going.
Yeah. So pay no attention to it. Pay no attention to it.
Right.
If he remains your friend, fine. But you don't trouble yourself about his ignorance.
Actually, Brother Shankara, in all honesty, I am part of that brigade that used to think Hinduism doesn't make sense, primarily because they were so obsessed with the idols. And any rational mind will say, hey, come on, it's just mud, or it's wood, or it's rock. I mean, that is what actually...
That's what my friend was implying. That's exactly what he was implying. But it's not that. It's what it represents. And if it makes you happy and it gives you solace and helps you get through this difficult life, why criticize it?
Well, furthermore, Krishna Kali, what you were probably objecting to, was priestcraft. Priestcraft is self-interested. And so their relationship to those images and so on is not one of, they're not relating to them as consciousness. They're relating to them as a way to make money. And so, again, why pay any attention to them at all? As Sri Chaitanya says, no times are set, no rites are needful, for chanting of thy name, so vast is thy mercy.
Brother Shankara.
Yes, Robert.
I have found, I want you to correct me, that when you start with concentration, if you select a physical item, it makes it a lot easier to begin, because in the beginning, trying to concentrate on a non-physical representation is very difficult. And I use like a crystal, or if you can concentrate on that for a while,
Yes.
when you become successful at that, then you can take it to another level.
Yes.
And
But I think, Robert, you began to learn concentration when you began to learn to become the master musician that you are. You learn to concentrate because you simply cannot play music successfully until you can concentrate on what you're doing and let everything else for that time rest outside. Now, at a certain point, you transcend that because of your mastery, and you can begin to improvise. That is to say, be in the flow of the music so much that you can begin to improvise. But that is an even higher level of concentration. And I'm telling you something you know very well, but I'm saying it for the benefit of these others, that anything that we do in life that requires our concentration is building this bone, so to speak, within us, building this system of nerves that can then be retrained in another direction. But you're right. When I first began to practice concentration, it was on that a flame of a candle in a windless place. And it was remarkable what happened. You know, I just focused my attention back and back on that candle flame burning, not flickering. And it was remarkable what happened. That was in 1965, probably.
Yeah.
So you said crystal. I used a candle flame.
When I used the candle flame first, I had forgotten about that. The crystal was later.
Beautiful.
Basically, any object of the world can be used for concentration. And on a lighter note, Brahmadas has Ma Sharada on his lap because Ma Sharada said, I'm in that cat, remember?
Well, yes, but that particular cat has Shiva in it. That's Ma's companion Shiva in that cat.
He's a very special cat.
Yes, it is a special cat. I've met the cat. So anyway, this business of concentration. Anybody else have anything that they want to contribute about concentration?
Just that now, go ahead.
No, Sumesh, go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say that now I find it like laughable or funny in me that how much logic I had put about like in pros and cons of the idol. And now it becomes so clear that, okay, it's to help you concentrate, and then sooner or later the physical objects go away, and then you are in the concentration or in the consciousness.
As
funny now.
As Patanjali says, what happens is the object of your concentration reveals itself to you. It's called samyama. Thank you, Sumesh. You're absolutely right about how we can, but don't think badly of yourself for debating the pros and cons of something that seemed important to you at the time.
Yeah, no, I'm finding it laughable, funny now that I used to do that.
Well, good. Yes, it's good for us to laugh at ourselves and our comical follies. There wouldn't be any humor without it. Something else, Brahmadas?
Yeah, we're back to the image of worship I'm now suddenly reminded of the time when M first met Sri Ramakrishna, and M told Ramakrishna, "Oh, it's not the real God, it's just clay." And Ramakrishna said, "But why clay?" Do you remember that? Do you remember
Oh, yes.
what did
Well,
he say?
that's exactly what I was saying. He said, you're just speaking from ignorance. I'm paraphrasing. You're speaking from ignorance. I have experienced that as a living presence, a living being. It is made of pure consciousness. And, so then he goes on to describe some other experiences. But the image of Kali. But that's where he started. He, Sri Ramakrishna, was hired as the priest for this image of Kali, this basalt image, stone. And he questioned, is there any reality to this? Is there anything, is this? And so slowly and slowly, and then finally fully, it revealed itself to him that it was none other than pure consciousness. Everything is made of pure consciousness. This is what's meant by the evolution from Purusha Prakriti to what we see as matter and participate in as matter. Pure consciousness becomes this that we experience through this process of the 24 cosmic principles. That's what we are experiencing, is pure consciousness become this. And we wanted it as the divine being, we wanted it to be so. I am one, I shall become many. And so this is why there's nothing to complain about. But being, creating, doing, sharing, the joys of these is why we're here. When you're truly tired of this, just sign off and head for home. And Patanjali's system is one very, very clearly defined, and everyone agrees, everyone who studies it agrees, it will take you home. This is why to study it, because we all need to learn how to contemplate, concentrate, and meditate. Anything else from anyone?
I just wanted to tell you my experience, because I do take, at the Hindu temple, when the people come to see the temple, some of the church groups as well as some of the students, even the students of the learning these religious things.
Yes.
The same question is raised by many people, they don't know. The only thing I was surprised is some of the students also have the same concept. I don't know how they are taught in the school, but it's the same concept. They say, oh, you guys, pray for multiple things. These are all idols. So that is what, I don't know, that's the way they're taught. I have no idea, but I see many, the students as well as some of the church groups.
Oh, yes. These students are taught from their own frame of reference. And as long as they remain within that frame of reference and practice earnestly, Sri Krishna says, they will achieve. But as Sri Ramakrishna says, if you do that, but you're bigoted, that is to say that anybody who does differently than you is wrong, is mistaken, then you have created an impediment for yourself because you've created another system of separation. There is no separation. Separation is all in our contrivance. We contrive these separations between ourselves and others. So yes, Barbara Brown Taylor. Barbara Brown Taylor used to bring her students from Piedmont College to the temple where you serve Balakrishna. And the first time that she brought a group of students, one of the women, very sincere, she ran outside and burst into tears. And her feeling was one of compassion, because she felt that, oh, all of these people that we see here doing this, they must all go to hell, because that's what she had been taught. And she was feeling so bad for them. She was weeping. This is described in Barbara Brown Taylor's most recent book, Holy Envy. And Barbara Brown Taylor was at pains to reassure her that it wasn't so. But the girl could not be consoled. Thank you, Bala. Oh, I'm sure you see this many times. People coming.
Yeah, then I have seen many, but I haven't seen this experience.
Well, no.
Of course, that is a.
Well, not very many people have that level of compassion.
Yes, you have to have that subtle mind to have that compassion, really.
Yes. All right, I'm going to read on, unless there's something else from anyone, I'm going to read on to where we'll start again next week. The words used to describe the 4 stages of such concentration are not easy to translate, and our English equivalents are hardly satisfactory. The stage of examination is said to be reached when the mind becomes perfectly concentrated upon one of the gross elements. One of the gross elements. Robert Ayres mentioned a crystal. The stage of examination is said to be reached when the mind becomes perfectly concentrated upon one of the gross elements. This is followed by the stage of discrimination, when the mind pictures the outer material layer pierces. Thank you. I knew that couldn't be right. This is followed by the stage of discrimination, when the mind pierces the outer material layer and fastens upon the tanmatra, the subtle essence within. And this can be done very much with a mantra. Many people practice mantra meditation. First, you focus on the words of the mantra or the sounds of the mantra. Then you get to the tanmatra, the subtle essence within. What is it? If the mantra goes Om, Oing, Ring, what is the subtle essence behind Om, Oing, Ring? First, you learn to pronounce those perfectly, and so on and so forth. So first is examination, then discrimination. Next comes the stage of joyful peace, when we concentrate upon the inner powers of perception or upon the mind itself. Finally, there is the stage of simple awareness of individuality, when we concentrate upon the ego sense in its simplest, most elemental form, untouched by any fear or desire, knowing only that I am other than this or that. So that's where we'll start again next week. Anything else from anyone?
Just to know, by the way, I took an 8 a.m. yoga class today, and the first 3 songs the instructor played were the 3 songs for Vedanta Evening Arati, the Om Hrim Ritam, Kandana Bhava Bandhana, and the Hymn to the Divine Mother. I found that interesting.
Well, it says a great deal about the instructor, where the frame of reference they're coming from. Thank you, Ramadas. That must be an interesting instructor. Anyone else have anything they'd like to offer?
Brother Shekhar, this is Haima.
Yes,
I agree with the last paragraph. Definitely, we will get to simple awareness of individuality, and we finally get to the Brahman inside us as we meditate, as we progress in meditation. I'm not there fully yet, but I have been experiencing such gradual development of stages. And it does happen. Then you become more peaceful, calm, and you are calm to any opposition. Things like that happen through meditation. Meditation reveals a lot of truth inside within us. Thank you so much.
Well, that's where the truth resides.
Mm-hmm.
This is what Vivekananda says over and over. It's all contained. The entire infinite, eternal, changeless reality is contained within each one of us, because each one of us is an objectification of that infinite, eternal, changeless reality. An objectification, not separate. Thank you, Haima. Anything else from anyone before we close?
Shankar.
Yes.
Hari Om, Namaste.
Hari Om.
There are 2 things on my mind, if we have time for it. One, I have always wanted to have some help from you about knowing more about the depth of Oing and Ring in my mantra. I do not know in case today is the time, but sometime when you have time, you can help me. Please.
That's not something for public discussion.
No, I meant on one-on-one.
Because it's part of your mantra, but yes, we can take time for that.
Second item, if we have time, we were talking about consciousness in everything. Yes, I have believed in consciousness in everything somehow from my childhood even, looking at a stone, etc. And then now being tuned to Vedanta, I do ask myself, knowing that there's only one consciousness, is there any stage or any difference in the consciousness in the table and the human beings or the animals?
Yes, the thing that sets the human being apart is that we can know that we are consciousness. The table cannot know it is consciousness. It isn't that it knows nothing, but it cannot know. And even the animals, though they are very aware of being present and alive, we can see from their behavior, they cannot know that from which they arose. Only human beings can know this. This is what Vivekananda asserts. It's in the Upanishads as well. For that matter, it's in the Christian scriptures. So we are, according to these teachings, we are unique in universe. That we here who live on Karma Bhumi, the realm of action, that all these things that participate in action cannot know themselves. But we also contain the knower, the Atman, in a way that allows us to know. It's described in, I can't remember, I'm not good with the numbers, but it's one of the latter chapters of the Gita titled The Knower and the Field. The Knower and the Field. Very clear description by Sri Krishna of what it is that sets us apart.
Yeah, that is the chapter 13.
15, is it?
Kshetra and Kshetrajna.
And what is the number again?
I think it is 13.
13, okay. Thank you, dear. Anyway, it's toward the end of the Gita.
Yes, yes.
And Bhaskar, if you want to see what is meant by the fact that the yoga of bhakti yoga, is in the Gita, chapter 12, that I remember clearly. Chapter 12 is devoted to the yoga of devotion. And it is very explicit indeed. Thank you, Balakrishna. Anyone else have anything?
What page are we stopping on here?
Oh dear, I don't know. My pages and yours aren't the same, so
Okay.
it looks to me like page 41.
Yes,
It looks
41, 42, exactly.
It's 42, correct.
42, we ended it, but you said we will start on 41 again, back to
Yes.
that. That's
Yeah,
right.
we'll start with the words used to
The words.
describe. The words used to describe. And, the Swami is right away apologizing for the fact that Sanskrit, he's a real Sanskrit scholar, that there are words in Sanskrit as used by Patanjali that really cannot be rendered in English. But we come to understand them. We'll even understand the Sanskrit when we practice what Patanjali teaches. We'll understand the inner meaning of the Sanskrit. So, any other sweet thoughts or comments? All right, tomorrow morning is Easter Sunday. So, of course, we will celebrate Lord Jesus Christ. And the topic is, Ye have not chosen me, which is one of the statements that Jesus makes in the book of John. Ye have not chosen me, I have chosen you. So, for those of you who choose to join us tomorrow morning, see you then. Until then, Om Asatoma Satkamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amrutangamaya, Abir Moiti. O dearly beloved Lord, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from this realm of endless noise and relentless delusion to thine abode of silence, serenity, clarity, and peace. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through, light us through and through with thy everlasting, shining presence. Om Hari Om. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga Durga Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we go forward in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. So until tomorrow morning, much love to each of you, and every best wish for your day, your night, and your Easter morning. Sayonara.
Thank
Jai
you.
Gurudev.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Bye-bye, dears.